Hey guys, this is My Leak. This is the My Taught You podcast. And on today's podcast, I am going to be talking to Devi Brown. I met Devi for the first time sharing a car to go speak on a panel for Nicole Kane, right? I think that's where we met. And what's so funny is that Joanna has been on the podcast, and I think Joanna couldn't do my makeup that day because she was doing yours.
Got it.
Yes, and I saw you guys in the lobby like, oh, she's like, this is why I couldn't do your makeup. So I'm like, oh, you chose Devi over me. But I'm going to read your bio really quick, Devi, and then we're going to get into the questions. I want people to know who you are. So Devi Brown is a communicator on a mission to connect people with the world's inside and outside of themselves. She has spent more than a decade hosting radio and television shows from coast to coast, today through radio, TV, and podcasting, as well as workshops, speaking in her company, Karma Bliss. Devi is connecting hungry young people with spiritualism that's relevant and beneficial to their lives. Devi's most recently held position of music director and #1 rated host for iHeartMedia's 93.7 The Beat, while also hosting entertainment segments for CBS television affiliate KHOU 11. Devi's career has taken her to New York City, where she hosted MTV's talk show Hip Hop POV and helped launch SiriusXM's Sway in the Morning Show. I didn't know that. As co-host alongside hip hop and cultural legend Sway Calloway. Before that, Devi was a host on the Radio 1 station 97.9 The Box, where her viral interview with Kanye West landed her on Good Morning America and The Today Show. Though her career has taken her across the country, Devi's heart will always be in her hometown of Los Angeles, California, where she started her career at 93.5 K-Day, rising in the ranks from enthusiastic intern to music director and on-air personality. Off the air, Devi is the founder of Karma Bliss, which we're going to talk about, a company dedicated to self-discovery, author of the best-selling book Crystal Bliss, as well as a Deepak Chopra certified instructor of primordial sound meditation. Devi, what haven't you done?
Weird hearing your bio said out loud.
Every time I read someone's bio, they're always like, wow, that's me. I'm like, that's you. That's you. You've done all of these incredible things. So when I met you, we instantly connected. We ended up going for drinks after our panel and just talking until they booted us out of the bar. So I couldn't wait to get you on. And I tried to have you on earlier, but I was going through my first trimester sickness, and then you are now expecting congratulations. Wow. So I was so glad when I saw that. I was like, oh gosh, you'll know I'm not a horrible person, because I kept flaking and I couldn't say. But I guess I want to start with, I think for the people who listen to this podcast, you started your career at K-Day. And I remember listening to K-Day growing up in LA. It was one of my favorite stations. You started out as an intern. Can you tell us how you went about getting an internship in radio and what sort of attitude you had as an intern?
God, and mind you, so not to like super date myself, but this is like a long, long time ago. So
right.
Some of the things I'm going to say are going to sound so ancient.
But that's okay.
To younger listeners.
Some things still apply.
I had, so I was around, like it was like my freshman year of college. And I went to Cal State Northridge, and I had started working on this internet talk show with a friend of mine named Tony Price. And we were kind of building a buzz, because this was a time when I know like everybody has beautiful ways to communicate and like share themselves and start their shows. But this is like when the dial-up modem was like still the thing. So it was it was very rare to be like, I'm doing a show on the internet. It was like super weird.
You were way ahead of your time. Right.
So we started doing that show, which really gave me the confidence to pursue radio for real. So at the time, two of my favorite radio personalities were DJ and Romeo, the Goodfellas, and they were on 93.5 K-Day. Yeah. And so I used to listen to them, in between classes and, just driving around. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to log onto my MySpace and see if they have a MySpace page.
Okay.
And so I sent them I just sent them a message and I was like, hi, I go to Cal State Northridge. Like, I'm really interested in working in radio. Like, I would just love to help you in any capacity possible and learn from you. Like, I'll get your coffee, like very cliche, right? I'll run and get your coffee. But I would just love the opportunity. And luckily they responded right back and they're like, yeah, come up tomorrow. And so I got up there, and then my biggest goal with this internship was to work my ass off. So that I could stay around as long as possible. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, prove myself invaluable. So the second I walked in, I didn't have a formal internship yet, but they were just like, well, we wanted to meet you, fill you out. And instantly I was like running to do everything. I ran to get them food. I was printing out questions for the guests they had coming on. I was organizing the studio. Like, I was like, I have got to earn my keep. And they were like,
were you getting paid?
God, no.
Were they paying you?
God, no.
Okay.
No, at that time I was in college and I was still working. I had it was a crazy time in my life where I was like commuting 4 hours a day. I was going to school. I had a side job. I was sleeping maybe 4 hours. And I did that for like a couple years. And they were just phenomenal. Like they were true mentors and teachers. They wanted me to shine at every opportunity possible. But I think a big part of that was I recognized early on, they don't owe me anything. Like, when you are mentoring somebody, or like if you're a mentee, it's not your right for someone else to help your dreams come true. Right. What you're there to do is to work hard so you get the opportunity to stay around and learn. But it's not, I think a lot of people who intern these days put a lot of pressure on the people they're interning for. Like, they should be recognizing them and giving them this fast-paced ride to their dreams. And it's on you to make your dreams come true. But you're being allowed to be in the building right now. That's the real valuable thing. So, I kind of walked in with the mentality of, how can I make their lives better? How can I make their show improve? And by nature of doing that, they gave me just phenomenal opportunities to grow my wings.
Wow. So you went from intern. How did you make it all the way to music director and on-air personality? So you come in, I'll do anything. What was the next step after that? They offer you a formal internship or a job? What did you do next?
Yeah. So first I was able to get more of a formal internship. And then I really just saw, this is kind of a unique setting because, if you're familiar with KDNLA, at least, many moons ago, it was a privately owned company. It had a little bit lower of a signal than some of the other stations. So there was a lot of opportunity to grow because it was such a grassroots kind of radio station.
Right.
So at that time, I really just, I started trying to be around as much as possible. After working on their show, which was the night show, for quite a while and helping them, I went from getting their coffee to then being an unofficial producer of their show. So I was coming up with segment ideas. I was booking guests. I remember one night I heard that LL Cool J was in town. Because he had a health book out, and so he was doing a book signing. I was like, oh, you guys, did you hear LL's here? You should try to get him. And they were like, well, why don't you try to get him? I was so I remember I called every single Barnes and Noble in the city. And I was like, is LL Cool J coming to, your thing? And I finally, 2 hours into these phone calls, I finally found the right place. Okay. And I talked to the manager at Barnes and Nobles, and she was like, I was like, we'd love to promote your event. We'd love to tell everyone to go to Barnes & Noble. Can you please connect me with LL's manager? And then we ended up, an hour later, LL came to the station and we got him on the show.
But this is what I always am trying to tell people about being resilient. Number one, you came and you brought ideas. Number two, you figured out how to make it happen. And that is what people are looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what really, I think, took me to the next level with them, because they saw that, I was willing to outwork whoever was around me. And I was really willing to put myself on the line and even, jump out and potentially fail. But if I didn't, wow, so I would do a lot of stuff like that. So I became their unofficial producer. Which then kind of had me in the building more. Then I would just start coming in a few hours earlier before their show and mingling with the personalities that were on before them, talking to the program director, just trying to make myself available for everyone. Because also at that time, I was just looking to learn every facet. So I didn't necessarily in my mind say, I'm working towards being on the radio. I just knew I wanted to grow myself in that field. So through them, I also met an amazing label rep at the time named Big Paul, who worked for Motown Universal. I started meeting all of these, heads at the label that would bring the artists in. And so I ended up picking up a second internship working at Universal and Interscope while I was doing my internship with the radio station. Because I was like, I just want to learn how all the sides work, how, everything kind of goes together. So from there, it was kind of like an accident, like one of the, and I know you're going to remember this name and you're going to be like, oh my God, blast from the past. You remember Theo from 90?
Yes. Asian Theo.
Yes.
Theo used to, Theo's voice was banging. Oh my God.
Remember he was like on Moesha. Like he was like the biggest thing in radio.
Everybody would call and be like, Theo, I love you. Theo, you're so fun.
Yeah. And he'd be like, hey, baby girl, just keep striving. Like he was amazing. Yes. And it was just perfect synchronistic timing of me coming into this radio station that was kind of, didn't have as many resources as other stations. So they were looking to maximize the people they had. So Theo ended up, he did a late night, sexy show on the station. And then he also ended up becoming the program director.
Okay.
He was one of my biggest heroes coming up listening to the radio. Mm-hmm. And he just took an interest in me. He saw me working really hard. And I remember, one day he came up to me, he was like, hey, Dev, he was like, I like your voice. I think you could be on the radio. I'm going to give you a gossip segment on my show. And I was like, wow. And I was so scared. And at that time he had a syndicated show. And so he was like, we're going to call it The Dirt with Devi Dev. And every day you're going to have gossip. Now,
I remember this.
Mind you, this is way, way before you got daily gossip. Especially in the urban world. Like this is when still you had to wait for magazines to come out to find out what happened in the last month. You know what I mean? So it's not like there were some like great, like reliable sites at the time, like a Bossip, but Bossip was still only updating their site every 3 days or so.
Okay.
And every day I was supposed to have new fresh tea. So it was tough. But from there, I ended up growing in that. And then he said, why don't you quit your job and come here full time? He was like, I want you to start being a part of the morning show. And at that time we syndicated Steve Harvey's morning show. Okay. So my real kind of start in radio came when I was hired to do the local weather and traffic for Steve Harvey's show.
Oh, wow.
So I would be that voice that comes on the radio like, and today on the 210 freeway, lots of heavy traffic.
Right.
You can avoid the 10. 75 degrees with a breeze. Like that was me. Okay. And so that was kind of how I was able to get in the building full time. And from there over the next probably 5 years, I just kept working. Different people would either leave, get laid off, get let go. And the company, because, they didn't have many resources, they were just like, who can fill this position? Who can fill? So before I knew it, it's like, I'm 22, I'm a music director, I'm the promotions director, and I'm on air. And it was just, it was invaluable experience at such a young age.
Wow. So that 22, you get all this way. And I know we spoke, and 2 times in your career, you quit your job with nothing to fall back on. And one of those was you ended up quitting K-Day.
Yeah.
Why did you quit? And you didn't have a backup plan?
No, my God. I had no backup plan. I had been able to at that time, especially on like the underground hip hop scene in LA, build like a really good name for myself and build great reputations. Okay. Because of course, I wasn't, I was hustling. So I wasn't just working at K-Day. Like then I had also started this kind of like underground hip hop show called Zombie Radio, again, with my friend Tony. And we were just building great, great relationships with a lot of like the up and coming artists that later turned into, your Kendrick Lamars, your Miguel's, your J. Cole's, your, just a lot of people that were around at the time. So I felt like I don't know. It was really one of those step out on faith moments because we had gone through a lot of transition and it turned out that everyone I had started working with at the station had been let go. Like everyone except me, everyone, even the people that brought me in, and it had changed kind of dramatically. It was a tougher place to work. Some of the joy left. And it was also, at that time, my friend and program director, Adrian Scott, he had decided to shift gears and find a niche, which was turning the station into an old school station, which was in radio time, revolutionary. Now there's probably a throwback old school station in every major market.
Right.
It was the first of its kind. No one had ever done it. No one thought it would work. And it ended up completely boosting K-Day in the ratings, which was great for them. But for me being in my early mid-20s, it was well, I have all these connections in music. I've been able to do these incredible interviews. And now I'm kind of relegated to just people that were popping in the 80s, which is dope, but not when you're, not when you're in your 20s.
No. Yeah. You're sorry.
So at the time I was oh God, I just have to go. I have to go. And one day God's voice honestly spoke to me like a boom. And I was sitting at my desk and God said, get up and leave. If you don't leave now, you never will. And I was oh my God. So I ran in my boss's office and I was I'm so sorry. I can't give you 2 weeks notice.
No, you didn't.
But I gotta go,
Right.
I have to spread my wings. I was super dramatic back then. And a friend of mine packed my desk for me, took my box to the car, and I drove away and I had no idea what was going to happen.
Oh my God.
And so for a few months, it was I was living in North Hollywood at the time. For a few months, it was okay, you're eating the bare minimum every day. I was I had no savings in the bank, 0 savings, but I did have a car that I owned outright. And I had, that I didn't have to make payments on. And I had my apartment paid up for a little bit. So I was okay, I'm going to figure it out. And I started writing bios for artists. I started, doing email blasts to get extra income. I started, whenever I got a chance to host a gig, I was still getting opportunities to host concerts or red carpets. So that was kind of just how I was squeaking by, just barely.
Okay.
And then, another radio opportunity came and I got the chance to get back in the game and kind of grow my brand and grow my skills.
Yeah. And I know it. So before I had ever met you, I would always see you on my social media with people that I knew and everybody being she's the best. There's no better person than Devi. Everyone loves you. So no, I would. Before I met you, I'm she must be a really nice person because everybody always had really nice things to say about you. But I know that your career took a bunch of different twists and turns. But something in our conversation that really stuck with me is that we talked about right now, we're all so afraid to fall off or of being irrelevant. And especially in what you do, it's there's the social media influencers, but you in radio or TV, it's all about being relevant. And you told me that you took a sabbatical, something that most of us would be mortified to take. What made you decide to do that?
Okay, I don't want to oversimplify this, but
yeah, it's okay. We have an hour, right?
I have faith in what God has planned for me, and I don't always know what that is, and I have faith in that unknowingness too. And
that's
I think
amazing.
For me and every day, my biggest goal with my life is to strive to be the best version of myself possible, whatever that means. Every day to give myself my best. And sometimes that best is going to fluctuate. But I know for certain I'm a good person. I'm a kind person. I'm a hardworking person. I know I'm showing up in the world as best I can. So I have all the faith that everything that's meant to come to me will. So I kind of got to a place a few years ago, and a lot of this comes with just, I've had a vast working experience of moving alone to different states and doing things the way everyone told me I needed to, and then seeing that it wasn't always the right thing.
Right.
So I have such a strong, I will not subscribe to the way society tells me I need to plan out my career, specifically as a woman.
Wow.
And, when I started kind of looking objectively at everybody with their FOMO, everybody with this fear of missing out, everybody with this, scared to be quote unquote irrelevant or to not be on the scene. And I'm like, well, everybody that's striving to do that in every second, what are they actually gaining? Right? Like a lot of people are getting really burned out. A lot of people have not now found other avenues to make money or other avenues to grow themselves or to grow their brand. And so you're kind of at the mercy of quote unquote, this false sense of relevance, And so I felt like I'm good. I'm going to always be good. So I'm going to take some time to myself, And I believe in my talent. I believe in my relationships. And I believe that even if those didn't exist, I'm not afraid of rebuilding. And I never have been.
Right.
So when I decided like last year, I was working for iHeartMedia at 93.7 The Beat, which is in Houston. And I was doing some fun, cool TV stuff. And I was just ready to move back home. I was ready to move back to LA. And I had been at that time, I had lived in Houston and I had lived in New York. And so I had been away from home for 7 years. And I just felt like I'm ready. I learned a lot. I met incredible people. I now have more skill sets than maybe some people who stayed in LA and didn't move away to get in other markets. So I'm just ready to go back home. And part of making that decision was saying, I'm going to walk away from my radio show for right now. And if something else comes up, it does. But if it doesn't, I want to take at least a year of sabbatical to explore myself, to explore other things that I'm interested in, to learn new things, And I think, especially with this kind of sometimes false sense of like, be on the grind, hustle, career, achieve. We forget that, especially if you work in entertainment or kind of a creative industry, like other people do this all the time. Like professors, they get every 7 years, they take a year off, they go on sabbatical.
Right.
Lawyers, like different professions can say, you know what? I'm gonna step away for a little bit and I'll come back refreshed.
Yeah, I remember I left LA 9 years ago, and I remember one of my friends who's actually been on the podcast. She worked at People magazine at the time, and I just left. I was working with Travis Barker, and there was that plane crash, and I was like, you know what, like, I'm going to go. And I remember her visiting me and being like, so what are you going to do? Like, now that you kind of like, don't matter, And I was like, the same thing that you're going to do when you don't matter. Yeah. Yeah. Like the same thing that you're going to do when you don't matter, because at some point in entertainment, we all stop mattering, like there becomes a new crop of faces and, especially as women, I think. And so I really felt like, especially when you work with celebrities, it's like you spend so much time promoting their albums, their books, their things. And I was like, what if I put the same effort into my own things,
Yeah.
So clearly I'm doing a good job.
An amazing job. Hello.
Thank you.
You're like the reigning queen. I get so much life from watching your journey and from, even just waking up and being able to see your tweets. Because I look at your tweets so much that now, like with the new algorithm on Twitter, you're the only person that pops up for me.
Oh, gosh. I'm sorry.
I'm like, yes. Oh, that's so good.
Yes, thank you. But you were on Twitter way, way back in the day. But so you took the sabbatical. Before I want to talk about your new book, and I want to talk about crystals because I definitely need some help in that area. But before we leave Houston, I'm so fascinated by the fact that your husband literally found you on the radio.
Yeah.
I think because we all love a good love story. I'm just like, how sweet and fake sounding is this? He loved your voice.
Yeah.
That's like old school love, right? Pre-Tinder, being, seeing someone's face, be like, I just like her vibe and her voice.
Yeah. It was like, it's so interesting because, so just super quick, God, like sometimes I feel like I've lived so many lives in one life that it gets like, so like every story I have to tell is so drawn out because it has so many like background pieces.
That's all right.
But I had moved at first to Houston for a year, and I was working for a Radio 1 station. And in that year, my husband at the time lived in Houston. And so he heard me on the radio, and he's a super, super hip hop head.
Okay.
His ideal day is debating music and like listening to Nas's catalog. Like that is his favorite thing in life.
Okay.
So he was like, and at that time, like I had like a lot of like different interviews that had gone kind of viral and a lot of stuff that had like kind of saturated the blogs in that space.
Okay.
So he was familiar with some of my work, and he heard me on the radio, and from what he says, you know, he felt really drawn to my voice. So he Googled me, and then he saw my picture, and then he felt drawn to me. And then he started following me on Twitter, and he would just kind of like always pop in to interact with me. And I used to do this thing where on Twitter, I would just like tweet like pieces of lyrics from a really like obscure or like old song. And I'd be like, finish that, you know, and people would hit me back with whatever the next line was. And he would start hitting me back. And I was like, oh, look at this guy. Who's this? You know? And it turned out we had a few mutual friends. So he popped up at my birthday party and introduced himself. And we went out a few weeks later. And then after that, we were inseparable, and life moved super fast after that. And actually, like 3 weeks after we met, I ended up moving to New York for work.
Oh my gosh.
So we instantly just started trying to fly to each other every weekend after that. And yeah, we got engaged super fast, married super fast, and then had a lot of growing up to do too.
Right. That happened. And now you guys are expecting your child, which is awesome. Okay. So we've talked about this because we had like a pre-call, and I tweeted about the fact that you were like, honest to God, I am just not a fan of entrepreneurship.
Oh my God.
Because now you're an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah. So bad.
And people and there were like a lot, but I'm telling you, because a lot of people, there were less people were offended and more people agreed with you. I think you said the thing that a lot of people are afraid to say, you know, it's like everybody's not on the path to be their own boss. And even some of us who are doing it don't love it.
Yeah. And I think that that's what's so important, because sometimes when things get on trend or they feel really empowering, we think that there's only one side of it and we all have to subscribe to that side of it.
Right.
And like the truth is, you know, we all have different priorities, different goals, different backgrounds. So things are going to feel different. And I think, you know, for me, I've always worked as talent, right? So on one hand, I've always been an entrepreneur, even when I've had a 9-to-5, because when you work as talent, you're always trying to hustle your next opportunity. You're always like trying to get like more side gigs and build your brand. So that is entrepreneurship as well. But I like the structure of working for other people. That's just me. Don't judge me. Like, entrepreneurship isn't for everybody. Now, I am an entrepreneur and I am building a business, and I have had some incredible successes in that business, but I do feel that I shine best when I'm working in more of a corporate structure. I'm an extrovert. You know, I like being around people. I like feeling energy of people. So for me, when I 100% like came on this entrepreneurship journey and I took the break from radio, I went from being in collaborative meetings and having fun and cracking jokes all day and having like more of an excited team building, brainstorming energy to sitting alone for 10 hours at Starbucks. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's cool that I don't have a boss. Woo. But I am like feeling kind of tragic, you know?
Yes.
Like I miss that energy, because when you're at the stage of maybe you're an entrepreneur, but you're not yet at the point where you're hiring more people, you're hiring a team, you have an office, and that's a long journey to get there.
It is.
It's tough. It can be very isolating. It can be lonely. It does take a certain amount of growth to get used to the fact that everything is on you, to get used to how to set up a schedule. You know, and yeah, it's a change. So it's not, I'm an entrepreneur and luckily the ideas that I've had have worked, but I'm not the biggest fan of it. You know, I'm not jumping out the window saying, look at me, I'm so dope. I'm an entrepreneur. Like, I'm like, I miss people.
Yeah, no. Listen, I have not had a formal gig in almost a decade. And there was that point of time, I only got an office about maybe 5 years ago, close to 5 years ago. And it's like, I didn't get dressed during the day. When you have a job, you get up, you get dressed and you present yourself. And it's like, you stop presenting yourself so often. It is very lonely and isolating. Everything's on you. So it's like, how do I do calls, do this, do that? And then you have all this freedom. I found myself working like day in and day out. Like there was I wouldn't stop, because it's like, well, if I'm home and the computer's open and people are contacting me, I may as well be working.
Right.
Yeah. And striking that balance is really crazy.
And
then,
I
opened an
office.
Turn it off. Yeah. And I was like, once I opened my office, it's like, I remember the first employee that I hired to work in the office, and I remember her coming in and being like, oh my God, I think the radio here, Bert in the Morning or something. She's like, there's this lady who had this in her kid's backpack. And it's like, oh my God, this is a dumb story, but I missed this.
Yeah.
I miss someone coming in and telling me about the drama down the street, or, what they heard on the radio. And it's like, those are the things that we take for granted, or someone to go to lunch with or talk to about, or, it gets difficult. And then you get to a point where you get more, and then you're like, it's a fine line. Then you're like, I think the hardest part about entrepreneurship, I've said this many times, and once there are tons of employees or even just a few, is like, I know what my talents are. I can do my job well, but the second job, which is the first job that I have of managing employees, is the hardest.
Yeah.
I don't like having to talk to people about doing their job right or wrong. People request time off, and it's like, why? Yeah. It's all these things that I had to learn that was crazy. But
and can I just say too, something that irks me is this shaming of people with 9-to-5s that I see happening a lot now.
Okay.
And I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, it's one thing if you decide that you have an idea, you have a business that you want to create, and you are an entrepreneur. But then there's some people out there that are throwing it in other people's face, like they're somehow less than because they have a 9-to-5 or job security. First of all, the world could not run the way it does if every single person became an entrepreneur.
Right.
Like it's just not possible. It's not feasible economically. But also it's like, it's not everybody's dream to start their own business or to sell their wares or to have great ideas and build things out. That's not what everybody wants. Success for each of us is so different. And so I feel like, be proud of yourself for pushing yourself and challenging yourself outside of your comfort zone on your entrepreneurial journey. But in no way does that make you better than, smarter than, or more worthy than someone that works for somebody else.
Yeah. I think sometimes, like, I often wonder, was I ever that person? And sometimes I'm like, maybe I was, or I came across like I was. But I think for me, it was like, I became an entrepreneur mostly out of necessity. In the height of the recession, no one would hire me. And so I would go on these interviews, I'd show up, no one would hire me. And it's just this thing where it's like, you know what? F it. I'm about to just I will make a way for myself. And I think along the way, I just always was like, it taught me that if I couldn't get a job, I could make a living with my bare hands,
Yeah.
And that was something that I was like, that's fine. I think, I was like angry, like, it's cool. You don't have to hire me. I got this. Don't worry. But I'm glad, because I don't, and I think something else, when I started a subscription service in the hair care industry, all of the clients that we have are 9-to-5 businesses. So I am by default a 9-to-5. It's like, I work and I was so happy. Like, when I stopped working with celebrities who call you all night and all this kind of, late night parties, like, no one wants to talk to me before 8:00 and nobody wants to talk to me after 5. And I'm like, I love this. I can go to dinner. Thank you. I'm like, thank you. If I choose to work late, I can, but I don't have to. The magic of being your own boss means you get to negotiate with yourself on what steps you need to take to grow your business. The next time you're having this internal debate, remember that spending more time delighting your customers is one of the most powerful things you can do to move your business to the next level. The good news is our friends at Freshbooks can help you spend way less time on your admin and paperwork so you can spend more time giving your customers more love. FreshBooks makes cloud accounting software for self-employed professionals that's ridiculously easy to use. It's so fast and easy, it can save you up to 192 hours per year on all that tedious paperwork and the tasks like sending invoices, calculating expenses, and tracking your time. Oh, and if you're doing the math, 192 hours works out to 24 days. Imagine how much more joy you could bring to your customers with all that extra time. For your 30-day unrestricted free trial, I want you to go to freshbooks.com/mytaughtyou and enter My Taught You in the How Did You Hear About Us section. I want to talk about crystal bliss, and I want to talk about crystals because crystals are kind of like the thing right now. I feel like I always am seeing people, they're wearing them, they're talking about them. I saw Nicole just got like her Himalayan salt lamp. And it's like, I think I'm still on the outside because I don't fully get it yet.
Yeah.
But tell me sort of how you got into crystals, and like, you have a book now. I don't even know how I'm supposed to use the crystals. Do I wear them? I want to get some now, and I have your book, but I'm just like, help me.
No. So you know what? Oh gosh. Okay. So another like kind of convoluted story coming.
It's all right.
So as a young working woman in media who was like the queen of super grind, like the queen of like team no sleep. Like I used to wear stress like a badge of honor, where It's like I was so proud of how hard I was working, how many hours I was working, And so I'd be like, yeah, I haven't slept in 3 days. I did an 18-hour day today. Woo. Like I was that person that was that, now looking back, I'm like, oh my God, come on. Like I had I lived, I breathed, I slept, I dreamed everything that was my career.
Right.
And I started to get really stressed out. In my career, in my transition. I'd moved across 3 states for work in 3 years. I had, recently got married. Like I had a lot of stress, which turned into shingles. Which I don't know if y'all have seen like the commercials for it, but like shingles typically 99% of the time affects elderly people. It comes from the chickenpox virus. It lays dormant in your system. Everybody has it, but it doesn't show its face until you're like 70s, 80s, 90s, right? So I was in like my 20s and all of a sudden I got this immense pain. Shingles is incredibly painful. It affects your nerves. There's no medication you can take for it. There's nothing you can do except wait it out. And so when I went to the doctor, she told me this is 100% response, like your body's response to stress.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, something has got to change because clearly my body is pissed and it's starting to shut down and I have to change my life. So that kind of thought led me to really realizing out loud that I needed to invite more peace into my life. I needed to get to the deeper realms of who Devi was, with or without a title, with or without quote unquote, relationships and relevance and all these things. Like I had to find ways to feel more joy in my day-to-day life and to feel more peace. And that led me to going on a meditation retreat.
Okay.
Which changed every single thing about my life. Learning to meditate changed everything. And after that, it became, I kind of developed a spiritual practice, a daily practice. And for the next several years, that was kind of my life. Now, part of what you kind of discover on that journey, especially if you're going into a journey of like the metaphysical space, energy modalities, like crystals are all around everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I started kind of like really being drawn to them and wanting to know more about them and using them. And everybody kind of in those spaces was doing the same thing. So I became an avid crystal user and I very much felt a real energy. associated with working with them, big shifts happening.
Okay.
So while I was still doing radio and, I would use my vacation time to go on more retreats. And eventually I started studying how to become an instructor myself. And I went through like this year-long training program, an intensive to teach Deepak Chopra's brand of meditation, which is primordial sound meditation.
Okay.
And I started noticing that I was getting like constant questions and just intrigue, not just from the people in my life, from friends, but from my listeners. They'd call the request line and ask me questions in my DMs. Like I was just constantly getting, when you're kind of cultivating a light within yourself, like people are drawn to it because you're giving them permission to access their own.
Yes.
So I thought, I really want to create like a space where I can share some of the things that I'm learning, which led me to launch my website, Karma Bliss, which really kind of pushed my entrepreneur journey out there.
Okay.
And through Karma Bliss, like we have like a bunch of different content on meditation and crystals and all those things. And we started carrying, we opened up like our e-commerce store on there, and we started carrying crystals and journals and meditation chairs and bunch of different things. So when we launched the website, I was doing like a bunch of interviews about it. I was doing a lot of like meditation pop-ups where I was like leading people in meditation. And I ended up getting this great opportunity to get a book deal to write Crystal Bliss, because they, the publishers felt like, we really like your voice in this space. It's not, there's not really, and I love crystal books and I probably have them all, but they're not always, well, they're never written by women of color, really. And a lot of the books were a lot older, a lot more focused on geology, a little bit more juju, which can be kind of like off-putting for some people.
Right.
And so my big goal was, how do I like demystify meditation? How do I demystify crystal use? And some of the things that might seem a little bit weird to our communities. How do I make it more tangible for people to use? So when I wrote Crystal Bliss, it was all about getting people real information about crystals, geological information, energetic, metaphysical information, fun facts, history, and then also just like really easy to find uses. Like, what are things that we think about constantly? We constantly think about, what is my purpose, my career? I want love, or I want more self-love, or, we think about, how can I de-stress? How can I have greater mental health, more physical vitality? Like a lot of these core things. And so I broke down the book based on that. So when it comes to crystals, to answer your question, like, girl, like everyone's biggest question is, how do I make it work?
Right. Do something.
Okay. What do I do with it? How do I make it work? And it's like, I have to stress to people, like, working with crystals does not make you a witch. Cause some people think that. It's not the wizarding world of Harry Potter. So you're not standing with your crystals saying abracadabra and all of a sudden, you're creating this like massive change and turning people into things. Right. There's a lot of like deeper uses for crystals, which I talk about in my book. Like, you can absolutely set intentions on your crystals and clear your crystals, do crystal grids, do crystal healing with your chakras. But on a basic fundamental level for a beginner, it's just find some crystals and keep them with you. Do your research on kind of what their energy entails and just keep them on you. Keep them in your purse, keep them in your pockets. A great place to just start to like subtly use crystal energy in your life is to put them on your bedside table, because you spend probably the most time being stationary when you're in your bed. So you're able to soak in that energy, or pop them up on your desk at work.
Okay.
Really just meditate with them, subtly notice their energy. You can wear, different pieces as jewelry. Now that, crystals have become so on trend in this last year, you can really find them absolutely anywhere. And you can find so many different jewelry pieces that are like very reasonably priced that have crystals in them.
Okay. And so I ask you this, if there were like, is there like a 5 crystals starter set? Like, if I was going to start today, which maybe 3 would you tell me to get?
Yes. So, okay. One of the chapters in my book is all about like that starter pack. I highly recommend for people to start with crystals, like citrine, which is known as like the stone of success. I feel like it's a stone that's like really strongly connected to destiny and purpose and leading you towards things that are truly meant for you. Clear quartz, because it's a great purifying stone, really good for like clarity and focus. And green aventurine, which is known as the stone of luck. It's a really kind of good stone for adventure. I use it a lot to find like parking spots.
Oh my God.
In LA where I can't find anywhere to park.
Okay.
I would also say black tourmaline is one of my favorite stones that I kept with me a lot, especially when I was first getting started, because I call it kind of like the anti-hater stone.
Okay.
It's really good for protecting you not just from negativity, but from like people who are maybe like plotting, who don't wish you well. It protects you from a lot of like jealousy and negativity.
Okay.
Let me see. I think I would also say like amethyst would be a really great stone to start with. It's one of the most abundant. It's the purple one.
Okay.
You can find it almost anywhere.
Okay.
And that's a really great stone for just kind of like building your sacred connection to a higher power and really kind of like breaking through addictive behaviors, addictive thoughts, things that are not serving to you.
Wow. You know what's crazy is I've been wearing this. I have this necklace that I bought that I wear. It's like this 3 triangles, and the stone inside is citrine. And I just didn't know until you told me. I'm like, wow, I've been wearing this for like 3 or 4 years straight. So it's like citrine, diamond, and gold. And I've been wearing it around my neck forever.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I'm like, let me find out. I'm already ahead of the game.
Yes, you're already getting all that energy. Look at all like you've been accomplishing.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I never take it. I've never been able to like keep jewelry on, and I wear it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I never take it off. It doesn't even feel like I have it on anymore. And I was just like, wow, I saw it. I loved it. And I never even looked up like what the stone, I'm like, oh, that's cute. And that's pretty much been it. But now like you have stones in Nordstrom. I saw, I'm like, how did that happen?
Oh Lord. It was so amazing. So I'm a huge super fan of Nordstrom.
Same.
I always have been, especially when I was in college, because they had that great return policy and I was broke.
Right.
But I love, like, I'm always in Nordstrom to find things for myself and to get gifts, and they have a really great online shop. So I thought it was really, I say all that to say, I thought it was so cool to have like my first retail partnership with a brand I'm a big fan of. So Nordstrom is like, they've created this well beauty campaign that they just rolled out in the last week. And it's going to be in their beauty departments, but it's really kind of harnessing on to the mindfulness space and things that people are really interested in that world. And crystals happen to be one of them. And so our SEO was kind of popping for the website. And so they found us and they contacted me and said, you know, we think that like your crystal Bliss bags, the products they're offering would be perfect for Nordstrom's. You know, send us some. We'd love to talk more about it. And after some kind of, you know, back and forth and more conversations, it turned out that they decided they wanted to carry 3 of our Bliss bags. Now, the Bliss bags we have on our website are different bags that harness different energies. So each bag contains 5 stones, and these stones like work in kind of like synergistic harmony with each other to bring you added energy for those particular areas you're looking to enhance. So we have our Dharma bag, which means purpose in Sanskrit. And so I kind of call it our career bag. We have our love bag, and we have our physical vitality bag. And so those are the 3 bags they've picked up. And as of last week, they are available in 40 Nordstrom retailers. Wow, nationally.
Congratulations. And that's so amazing. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that was tough, like Little Miss Entrepreneur crash course. And I bet you like Nordstrom, it's not like you started off in like a little boutique in Berkeley. Like you went straight to Nordstrom.
Yo, and that's what I mean by this entrepreneur stuff, right? Like I'm doing it, I'm entrenched in it, I'm committed to it, but it is difficult. Yeah. I didn't know anything about the retail space, nothing. You know, I've made my living my whole life of talking. Right. So I didn't know how to really operate in that space, and I had to get everything turned around within like 2 weeks because they were getting ready for like Christmas.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, oh, dear God.
Right.
You know, so let me preface this by saying I'm a big believer in always saying yes and then figuring it out later. Like even if I don't know how to do something, I would never, ever dream of turning down an opportunity because I don't know how to do it. I will always say yes, figure it out later, and deliver.
Yep.
And the same thing happened with the book, right? Because I had like a 2-month deadline on the book, and I was like, oh, okay, I've never written a book before. But
I got
all right, yes, let's give it a
go. Right.
So yeah, I had a big crash course in retail and understanding, EDI and fulfillment and shipment and SKUs and invoicing and POs and all these different things. But I figured it out, and I'm still figuring it out. And I'm just really excited. Something I really thought too, because one of the days, to be quite honest with you, I was so stressed out trying to make this happen on such a tight deadline that I was like going to have a breakdown. Like I was so stressed. I'm pregnant. So I was pregnant too. I was like crying a little, and I was just like, I should just quit because I don't know how I'm going to do this.
Right.
And I felt like, I just felt like I have to do this. I can do this because I must do this, I should say. Like when you know that God brought you this opportunity, like I can't throw it back in his face. Like how perfect of an opportunity is this? It's not even one I was seeking out. It landed in my lap. Clearly he wants me to have it and do it. I have got to figure this out. So yeah, I just kind of, you start researching, you force yourself through it and you do it, but it's tough.
Yeah. I get it. So, one thing that you and I have connected on, was how much we believe pregnancy sucks. I think.
Oh my God. It's so freeing to say that out loud.
I know. We've talked.
It's the worst.
I know. We've talked ad nauseum, about, it was so crazy because before I had this interview with you today, I had to run to the bank to wire some things. And the girl says, "Are you having twins?" And I'm just like, what? Why do people do this? It's like, what difference does it make if I'm, you're basically saying that you think that I look big.
Oh my God.
And it's like, I guess having twins because you were planning on babysitting, though I don't know you. But
it's so bizarre. People the questions people ask you about your body when you're pregnant.
Yeah. What would you say is your number one pet peeve?
All of it.
Number one pregnancy pet peeve.
Yes. Okay. So, and I don't want to, now keep in mind, anybody listening, before you get upset.
Yes.
We are also pregnant. So this could also just be us super in our feelings and super hormonal, right?
Yes.
So maybe we're coming on a bit strong and hard, but bear with us. Our bodies are changing in every second.
Yes.
But I feel like it really bothers me the amount of access people want to have to you when they find out you're pregnant. And I know there is no malice behind it. I know for some people it is genuine excitement.
Right.
But for other people, I think it's just you don't have anything else to say. Like you're just trying to be conversational. And whenever I have met a pregnant person ever, my friends and people I meet on the street, if I recognize they're pregnant, I just say congratulations.
That's it.
And I stop there. If they want to talk more about it with me, they can. But all I've ever said to people my whole life is, "Oh, congratulations."
Yeah.
So when I am bombarded with the second people see I'm pregnant, and I'm talking about full on strangers on the street, acquaintances, everybody, right? It's always, "How far along are you?"
Yes.
"Oh, how's it been? Have you gotten sick?" "What are you having? And what's the name?"
Yeah.
These questions are very invasive.
Yeah.
Especially for people that don't know you. And also because what are you really going to do with that information?
Right.
It doesn't really matter to you. You're just trying to fill that space with conversation, but you don't have to. It's okay. Yes, I'm pregnant. You see the belly. We don't have to talk ad nauseum about it so that you can now have information that you're going to forget as soon as you walk away because we're not going to see each other again.
Right. But that I'm going to be giving out all day.
All day. It's the first time you've asked me today, but it's the 25th time I have answered this question.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was something else that you and I talked about. And this will be our last like little rant, because I've appreciated being able to rant with someone. You know, while I am ultra thrilled to become a mother soon, this thing where people are like, you know, motherhood is going to tell you exactly who you are as a person, or, you know, you're going to find that motherhood is going to be your purpose in life. And something that I appreciated that you said to me is that, like, we are lucky enough to have kids, like, after we know who we are. You know, it's like, I became pregnant after I know who I am. So, you know, this doesn't necessarily give me credibility or importance, as you were saying, but it's like, being a little bit older makes it a little bit different, I think. I could be wrong.
Yeah. No, I think that's so true. And I was telling you, I was talking to Joanna about this as well. Of course, everyone knows from a previous podcast episode.
Yes.
Joanna Simpkin. Hey girl.
Hey, girl.
But, you know, we were kind of talking about, like, we're in our 30s, right?
Yep.
So we're having kids. And for us, we've had a big life before having children.
Right.
So, like, who I know myself to be as a woman is open to evolution, but it's pretty much like I filled out that full sheet about who I am, you know, for myself. I really know, I know myself. I'm firm and strong in my identity. I know what I believe to be my purpose is. So when I think of having this child, what I'm excited about and deeply honored by is that I have the opportunity, the sacred ability to lead a life, to be trusted with this new soul that God wanted to come to earth and to help guide it. To me, that is why I've always wanted to be a parent.
Yeah.
Because I've amassed a certain amount of knowledge, life experience, kindness, and love that I get to share this with the tiny soul that's entrusted to me.
Yeah.
But I don't look, and this is just my view. And again, like everybody's thoughts on who they are in the world and what parenting should look like, they're all going to be different. Yeah. So this is just mine. But I feel like, you know, I don't think being a mother is my purpose. I think it's one of the facets of how I'm able to share my purpose.
Ooh, that's a good one.
You know? But I think it's very dangerous, especially for women. And it's not our fault. Like we are shaped to think that we have to be in a frenzy about infants and about pregnancy.
Yes.
We have to, you know, like we as babies are given babies as toys.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like as a 2-year-old, I'm given a baby to take care of as a toy.
I didn't even think about that.
Men, if they're given any type of dolls, they're usually given trucks or sports paraphernalia. But if they're given a doll, it's like a my buddy.
Right.
It's a child of your same age that you're not the caretaker of. It's the homie.
Right.
But women, we are given baby dolls. They're like, oh, is that your baby? Is that your baby doll? Like,
wow.
Okay. Like, that's a lot to unpack when you really think about it.
Man.
Now, on one end, it makes us highly compassionate beings, and it does make us very nurturing beings, which we are.
Right.
You know, it kind of cultivates that in us, which is why a lot of times we're more emotionally mature than our male counterparts at different ages. But also that's a lot of pressure. Like, no, having children is not my dream. I'm excited as hell to have children, to have this child. I feel like it's a blessing and a gift. And I'm excited for the challenge of that. But I don't think that I think it's dangerous as women when we look at pregnancy or marriage or any type of family structure to complete who we are.
Yep.
Because those are always variables that can change.
Yes.
I don't believe in putting my thoughts of my identity or my happiness wrapped up into things that have the ability to change. I have to find wholeness within myself first. And I think, like, to bring it back to kind of like what we were talking about and what, you know, I said Joanna and I were talking about, I think if you're in your 20s, especially if you're like in your early 20s and you're becoming a parent, and it's a little bit different because you haven't yet fine-tuned who you are in the world. And this is not a shot. This is just kind of an observation. So I can understand why at that age, for women at that age, it could feel like, oh my God, this is my purpose. I'm a mother. I found myself. Because that's an age where you don't fully know who you are yet because you haven't had enough life experience. So for you, that is a very, very defining moment that will hopefully eventually unlock all the other amazing facets of who you are as a woman. But I think when you're in your 30s and you've already become that, you look at it different. Like I'm not spazzed out about finding baby things.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
like
I'm
not loving the pregnancy experience. I think it's a miracle. Like I'm
Absolutely.
a human 3D printer. Like I think it's a miracle and really cool that my body has the ability to do this, but it's tough, man. Like
it's tough.
I'm sharing my body with another human right now. Like I have a tenant. Like it's tough.
Yes. And the doctor
says,
you're
tired, you're swollen. Like,
yeah, the doctor's always like, if you feel bad, it's like, I used to think when I felt bad that the baby felt bad. It's like, he's fine. Like they are going to get what they need first. And like you really should just be trying to take care of yourself because they're going to get what they need. And you're just like, got it. That's what I think they were like. The prenatals are for you because they are, they're taking from you and then you need vitamins yourself. So I love that you share that. And it's like, I swear, I have been trying to find the way to articulate it, but like, I feel like you just really packaged that up so beautifully for me. And so I know that we are at the end of our time, Devi. So can you tell us everywhere that we can find you, online, social, all that good stuff?
Yes. Okay. First, I just want to tell you, you are such a phenomenal woman, and I'm very grateful for you sharing your platform with me today.
Thank you.
And I get so much out of our conversations, and we don't get a chance to like see each other often or talk that often. But when we do,
yes,
I feel like we are like diving into the depths of like the answers of the universe.
Yes, we are in the deep end. Like we don't go shallow. We're like, let's go deep.
Yeah. Like even when I remember the day we first met when after the amazing panel we did with Nicole and with Tracy G, like you and I were both dog tired. And I think we had 6 a.m. flights the next day. But we were like, yeah, let's talk. Forget it. Let's go to the bar. Yeah. And we sat for like almost 4 hours talking until they kicked us out.
Yes. They're like turning the lights off. Girls, go home. Yes.
But yeah, so I'm just deeply honored to share this space with you today. And I just want to like publicly salute you and just thank you for being who you are in the world and for sharing yourself with all of your followers and your fans and your friends.
Thank you.
And you can also follow me, everybody. To get back to the original question, you can find me Devi Brown. That's Devi with a V. I'm not saying Debbie.
Yes.
DEVI Brown. That's every social like Facebook, Twitter, IG.
Okay.
And check out my website, DeviBrown.com, and also KarmaBliss.com for my business.
Awesome. And the new book, Crystal Bliss. Get it if you want to get your crystal game up.
Yes. And you can find that at Barnes & Noble, a lot of specialty bookstores, and also on Amazon. It's hella cheap on Amazon and they deliver Prime.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Devi. I feel like the next time I see you, we're going to both be mom. We're going to both have our babies. I know. How crazy is that? We'll meet at Disney or something crazy.
Yeah. Play date.
I know. All righty. Thank you, girl.